Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Got a bunch of stuff to get to about Israel. Jojo Magoo making a statement, kind of. I haven't seen it yet, but and it's all that stuff. Some election stuff. I've got a lot of things have been building up because I've been doing voiceovers about various meta things, and I also was going to lead with something that's different happening with one of my channels, and so all of that. But last night I had what I consider the thing that's most important here. Just right before I went to sleep, it just came to me about this thing. And it has to do with my last video about how they've closed the door, right? And they've been closing the door now since 2015 on the internet, the free exchange of information. And one of the things, what I thought last night was, when I first came in to the truth community, and I dabbled with it, there was things, I was aware of from my brother and from my ex and different, little things. Like people have their little things that they don't trust the government on, healthcare. I was given anti-boop information by my ex, and my brother was a Vietnam veteran who had been one of the sort of original truthers with the stuff that they, the Vietnam War and the things that happened after that. That was when there was no internet and there was just a very fringe amount of people that had, knowledge about the Federal Reserve and these truther narratives that were out there. But very few people knew about them. Some of the things that you learn about when you come into this thing. But there was those of us who came in with the big event in 2001. And whatever you come in with, some people came in with a pizza thing. Some people came in with, the stuff that was going on with the schools, these events and, some of these other things that have happened. People came in because of whatever, these big things that have happened, the election stuff, right? And whatever you come in with, it's just always there. It's like kind of a wound that you have, it's just like a sensitive subject to you. But when I came in, there were so many videos about the big event. So this is back when YouTube was like the Wild West, when there was virtually no censorship. I mean, just, it had to be, I'd never heard of anybody getting a commuting guidelines strike. I don't even know if they had them. But they would take down videos occasionally. But for the most part, not. Videos were almost never taken down. And they promoted it. Their algorithms promoted the things because people wanted to see them. And there are so many videos about the big event 2001. Now, I made a series of 3, and I would say, I have my favorites as a viewer. And there's a lot that were kind of good, but they really didn't get to the heart of the matter. They pushed this bogus thermite, whatever. It was a thermite narrative. And some of these other things. Of course, people have this idea of a laser. But there was a video, who's that guy's name? The Corbin Report. I just had to go look it up. It's called The Big Event, and, it's not that. It's, that's what I call it, right? A conspiracy theory. And he did a really good job with that one. There's some other ones I really liked over the years. Can't remember them. There's a guy named Dmitry Halazov who was a Russian nuclear, kind of a gun smuggler and sort of a international criminal guy. It was a whole thing, kind of interesting. But he presented a theory that I now believe to be the right one, which is they have these mini nukes that can take down buildings. And that's why they called it ground zero, these things, right? And so I covered that. I debunked the whole thermite thing and the, and all the stuff to do with Chernobyl, all the first responders that got thyroid cancer. And so my videos were, I don't say my favorite because I don't, my own content, but it had information in there that was just better. But mine came to the party late. When I made them, I was already established. I mean, no one cared about this anymore. But I still did, right? So I made these videos, 3 of them. I don't know. They're on someplace. I don't know where I could put them up. But, also the idea that possibly Israel was involved. And so I put these things out there. But the mini nukes was something I was pretty, sure about. Like everyone has their different things, and But either way, this is what I ended up thinking last night: that all those videos are gone, and there was videos that had millions upon millions of views. Some of them were bogus. Some of them had some, partially disinfo. But either way, there was lots of them, and they were a body of information, plus all the little clips that people took from that day that disappeared. Like they just disappeared. They started erasing those clips that showed things that weren't consistent with the official story. And so there's so much information that's just gone. And you guys who came into the truth community late or later, like you didn't get to see them. Like you might go, might be some of them are up on Rumble or someplace. But, for the most part, that body of work is gone. Of course, people have lost interest in it, but it's really the biggest one, the most important one. But either way, then there was these other things that came after. And I watched all these things and, eventually covered them myself. I was just doing homesteading videos, and I'd talk about things occasionally, but I wasn't making content about some of those things in the early days. But, all the things that were covered by me and other people, over the years, and, before that big event time, they're all gone, right? I mean, they're not on the internet, like not just even, they don't, I mean, people no one has them, right? Like, I don't know how people, how many of them have been copied or people have them on the computer. People throw away their old computers or the data gets lost. And, I've learned that Apple, if you don't use a file, they'll just tend to forget it. Like, just pretend this doesn't exist and keep it up in the cloud. And then then I go, whatever happens to it, right? Which is kind of like, I was kind of stunned by that. But these things aren't around, right? I've saved everything that I made on these whatever they are, the external hard drives. But, I've made 20 terabytes of data in these things, right? So it's hard for me to, remember all my videos. And all those videos that are no longer on my channel for a variety of reasons, they're pretty much gone, right? Those things. And that's just me. And so, what was neat about the internet is that there was new information that was being allowed to be talked about. And so the truth community grew from less than 1% to about 30 to 50%, right? Depending on how you're going to quantify the truthers or qualify the truthers. People who are dabbling at least and believe in some of these conspiracies. But the other piece was you can't really do justice to some of these things necessarily in a podcast or a written work or books and things. I mean, they're all good. People don't read books and these whatever it is, written word and articles and things, news articles. Videos are the way to go. Like videos are the best because you can show things. You can show clips of things, and it's just the videos are the best way to disseminate this information. Because I can remember things that were in these videos, but I don't remember everything that was in them, even my own videos, right? And I could tell people about it, but if I show you, make a video with clips in it and things like that, and then you can rewatch it, which people do. And so these things are gone now. Like all that stuff's gone, and people remember it and they kind of understand it, but they can't explain it. And now following generations don't have access to that. And so how quickly the internet, exposed all these things and how quickly they shut it down. The gatekeepers came in, and now there's like virtually no truth channels, and it's just access to these things. Like you can't find the truthers anymore, even if they're still there. People can't find my channel, and I got all these channels, and then they find my, Poc Laughs Now channel, and they think that's my main one. They can't find my main channel anymore. And so even though they're still subscribed. And so this, shadow banning and all the things that they've done, effectively wiping out this whole, millions of terabytes of information that was out there that was exposing these things. And, they've effectively scrubbed it from the internet, right? So very interesting how it's gone. And those of us who remember and know, it's, it's there, but it's not the same, right? And it's easy for things to fade and people don't have an interest in things and they forget about whatever. And so then, maybe so many years from now, they'll admit to it. Probably not. But that big event, 2001, is really the sort of watershed event because of a self inflicted, false flaggy type of thing is a big deal because, like, that shows you everything you need to know about how they, not just lying to you, but, just doing things to, like victimizing people. Because victim consciousness is what's created in these events. If you look at every one of these events that have happened, the victim consciousness, like the big event, the victim consciousness that allows you to start taking away people's freedoms, taking away people's rights. The whole victim consciousness around somehow, the Russia cheated in the election and just all the other things that have happened. The victim consciousness surrounding these these various stories that came out, right? Suing Alex Jones, these things, right? He's the controlled opposition, all the stuff that's up with that. The deplatforming people has come because of victim consciousness. Oh, we've been victimized and you guys are the bad guys, the conspiracy theorists, for, sharing this information. And therefore we get to deplatform you. Therefore you're a threat to us because of the boop, right? Because you're not taking the boop. You're anti-boop, right? So you're a threat to everybody. Everyone's going to die of COVID because of you. And we're going to, deplatform you and, censor you and ostracize you and, all these things. Because, giving yourself permission to treat people badly because of a perceived victim, they've perceived, victimization at their hands when you're really the victimizer yourself. You're the abuser. But, the window was open. The door was open for a while. And, people can still find it now in these other platforms. But, it's not going to ever be like it was. But the door was open and people's consciousness has shifted. And there's going to be things that happen now. Like everything that happens now, there's lots of people who doubt it. And it's more people than they let you know. They pretend it's only a fringe group of people, but it's, it's a demographic. It's, more than 1/3 of the population. You will doubt one thing or another, right? Even Dick Van Dyke I covered yesterday, his was about Trump. He had a conspiracy theory about Trump in the Supreme Court. So he was goofy about it, but I covered it on my other channel. Today's Monday, May 6th. I just released that video today, and tomorrow this will be up. But, it's something to think about, right? And so, I've made this change on my, segue into this. I had a channel called Exposing the Heartfulness, Fraud, Dodgy Truth. And, I was just doing too much. Well, a couple things happened. Because I want to show you the demonetization thing in a moment. Because it's kind of interesting how they didn't monetize it. But, what happened was, I saw the Sajmarg meditation that I do. That's, to me, the answer to the problem of human beings have to change. And the Sajmarg system helps people change in a way that no other system does. By facilitating for willing practitioners the connection between them and the divinity within them. It's the sole reason for the system. And it had helped me transform my, inner condition. And in so many different ways. And so it is, to me, that's the solution. That's only spirituality will save this world. That's why I say that. It's a saying from, the second master of the system, but it's, for me, something that I believe in wholeheartedly. That only people becoming saintly and connecting to the divinity within them is going to change this thing. Because we create our systems, we create the world around us, and it's our orientation and our egos that have run amok. We have a problem of human ego. And the Sajmarg system helps the ego to accept the path of the soul and in a way that it's just built for it. There's a transmission, divine energy where you get to experience the higher levels of spiritual attainment. And then there's also the cleaning to clean away the the samskaras and impressions that, fortify the ego's hijacking your soul's purpose, right? The human ego hijacking your real, soul journey, the soul's journey back to God, to the source. And so, I've done this system for so many years, and I was, friendly with this new master, Daji, the guy who was the third master's successor, president of the system. And I watched him turn this thing into, a cult and just like goofy stuff, like stupid stuff, and turn it into a, material religious cult from a spiritual organization. And, I had a front row seat. And of course, I make videos, so I, have a way of disseminating the information. And I made this thing called the Journey Series. People weren't interested in this, and it's a shame because, the problem is they don't understand the value of what's been lost. There's a system in place that was the solution to the problem of, the ego problem of humanity. But people don't get it and don't want it and whatever. Not interested in it. So they don't know what's been lost here or what potentially has been lost. But I do. And, because of my relationships within the organization and, just all of it, and the information that was given to me, I documented all these things. And eventually I felt like, begrudgingly, because, the people who are in the system, they should have seen the same thing I did. And if they did, and they decided just to sit on their hands and pretend it didn't happen, which is what most of them did. Now, what a fall off it was from the previous, master of the system was a service-oriented person who, burned his personal resources to serve God and other people. And the new guy who just is like an absolute dope and just, embarrassing. And so I documented this stuff, and I eventually made some videos that I put out there, and the organization copyrighted the videos, which, the embarrassing clips and the clips that were pretty much, were a slam dunk that I put together like I would do, making these types of videos, I couldn't use anymore. And so I got 3 copyright strikes on 3 different channels. So I, was created this other channel, but the people in the organization aren't really interested, and you guys don't care, for the most part. Like some of you do, but like it's a, you guys already know. Some people are doing Gratefullness meditation, which is, the old Saj Marg meditation. But anyways, I created this channel, and, it was effectively censored because of I couldn't use the evidence that I needed to show people in videos. But even if I did, no one was really interested in watching the videos. It wasn't going to affect people. New people aren't going to fall for the heartfulness scam for the most part, like people who are, who would watch my videos. And, people in the organization have just folded, like just in an embarrassing way. And I felt like it was my duty to put the information out there. Some of the people have helped me over the years in the organization. The organization itself has helped me. And I felt like it was, I begrudgingly put these videos out there because I knew that no one cared about it. There wasn't going to be people weren't going to watch them, and they weren't going to be open to them. And, my normal audience already was, with me about the whole thing. And so really it was just an exercise in futility, which I knew it would be, but I had to do it because sometimes you just got to, do things because they need to be done. You got to give people the opportunity to reject something. You put something out there, and if they don't like it, they don't like it, but at least you told them, right? Because you just have to. But, I have 4 channels now, and it's just too many. Like the Gratefulness meditation doesn't take much. I've already built that to whatever it is. So people can do the Saj Marg system the way it used to be done. And that's, like a community service thing, and it's there for people. But I don't spend much time on that. But just the 2 channels is a lot for me. And then having this other one that's about some other stuff. And there was drama with the channel, and then these people showed up and left dopey comments. And, it's the kind of people I don't really want to connect with. There's people I don't really like. I mean, to me, they're the worst people in the world. The people who are, did the Saj Marg system and bailed on these people were supposedly loved the former master of the system, and they just watched the guy's reputation and be just completely erased from the system. And there's a loss of work there. The same thing that I'm talking about on the internet has happened in the Sagemark system, where there's all these books and videos that were helpful, because they were true to the system, are being erased by this guy Dodgy. Like, I've been told that he ordered people at these bookstores to destroy books right after his, supposedly his master, he was discharged, his disciple. After he died, he just started to purge the guy from the mission, which is really screwed up. Like, it's a really effed up thing to do. But anyways, like, I just, I knew it was going to be a relief for me to get rid of that channel, and now it's a backup channel. Let me switch over to my other app, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, so here's the channel, Pockets of the Future backup channel. If you go to any of the new videos, the videos that I'm going to put up henceforth, I've changed the upload default so that this will be there for those of you who want to subscribe to this. This is on a different account, different email account. And so, if something happened to my whole account or something, you could still find me and, over here. One of the ways that they censor you is to not monetize your videos, right? So organizations that are making money, news organizations or other YouTube channels or, the official story stuff, all can make money, right? They all have a revenue path. But YouTube is strangling the revenue path for independent voices. So I'm in the editing process. I just want to add this. It's important. But over the years, it used to be you'd have these purist truthers that would show up that I thought were disinformation agents or whatever, or they were just that stupid or that hostile or whatever. But they would accuse me of not being a pure truther because I was getting financially compensated, right, for my work. And it's the stupidest thing ever, because you have to understand that there are news agencies and people in the CIA and people, all these corporate shills out there, all these people on social media, government, right, who get paid just to get out there and put out disinformation, or get paid as news journalists to put out disinformation. And so they have the backing not only of financial backing, but backing of legitimacy, backing of they get preference, they get better treatment on the social media platforms. So they already have an unfair advantage. They have access to all these various levels of resources that we don't have in the truth community. So even if YouTube was paying me the premium rate and I had good merch and I had all the money, I was making a ton of money on YouTube, I still wouldn't have it. I would still be at a disadvantage, even if they were leveling the playing field so they didn't give preference to authoritative voices. Truthers would still be at a disadvantage. But now when they strangle you financially and make it so that you have to do this as a hobby, you have to work a job to support your truther habit, well, then it's going to be inferior work. And you're just going to give up because it's going to be too much, right? Like, you're just going to get tired of fighting against the beast for what? Like, you're not, you're just, so they can shrink your audience and, shadow ban you and things like this. So financial compensation, or the lack of it, for your time and your work is really the biggest thing they do. I mean, all the other things, you might fight against a community guideline strike, or you can go to another platform. There's ways that you might get around all the other forms of censorship, but not allowing people to get compensated for their time and work and their effort is the biggest one. It's how they've just basically erased everybody, inevitably, from the truth community. And so it says here, we have reviewed your appeal. So I had to get 4,000 views and 1,500 subscribers, I think it was, before they would consider monetizing my channel. And that used to not be the case. You just had to get a YouTube channel, and you could apply for monetization right off the bat. And during that period of time, YouTube has changed their policies, and they run ads on your channel anyway, and they get the full amount of revenue. And so, depending on whatever they're doing with your channel, if they deem it, ad friendly or whatever. And so I waited forever. They withheld I had 13,000 views, but they were only counting 4,000 or under 4,000. And they just slow walked the whole process. Took months. So months for after I had already got all the things that I needed. I mean, like it would took another month after I already had more than enough subscribers. And this was an extra channel. Now, the most I would have made was like $5 a day on my videos. And I'd create all kinds of content. And then, I got copyrighted, so I couldn't use that content. And, if they really knew what heartfulness was, they would be against it. I mean, they don't care, YouTube, but they, with the brighter mind scam and all the things that go with it. But they're not, their algorithms and their bot learning, or maybe they don't, I don't know, who cares? But they're preventing me from putting out information about a cult, basically, right? Which was being promoted on their platform. And, I was doing a service for all of it, right? But they slow walk the process. And this was an extra channel that I'm doing basically on my free time and basically volunteering because I'm the best person to do it for an audience that I don't even like. My former, people that did the Sajmark system that now have fallen for the Heartfulness cult, people I don't really like and who kind of ostracize me. And they're like the ultimate sheeple. And so, I mean, that's the process going on here. And then YouTube is making it as hard as possible to get monetized. And then when I complete all the necessary parts of it, they deny me monetization for no good reason, right? I'm saying this, I'm in the editing process. I'm adding this here. Just so you have a sense of, like, this is not just about me. This is about anybody. Like, this is how they demoralize you and keep you from posting the truth, whatever it might be. Or just posting on YouTube. It's like they're getting rid of all their people. Like they're trying to sabotage their own platform. I applied for it and they rejected it, right? And so then I made a video saying, well, this is what my channel is about. There's no reason for them to reject the monetization, right? So they say here, your channel violates other policies. You can learn more here. And reviewers found that your channel doesn't follow all YouTube's monetization policies. And so that brings you to this page. And like they say some new things here. And none of these things apply to my channel. But you're supposed to figure out what they're seeing in your channel. They don't even tell you this is what you have to do. Like I did the Gratefullness meditation channel. They said I was using too much of other third-party content, and that wasn't the case. It was because I had some videos up there about Dodgy and Heartfulness. And so they look into this thing here, and there's nothing there that would indicate why they flagged my channel, right? And the other thing goes to the exact same place here. And so both links lead you to this, and they don't inform you this is what we saw. This is what you need to change to get monetized. And when none of these things apply, then you're left without any sort of guidance on how you could get your channel monetized. Again, they're running ads here, and they're making money off the videos. So I'm uploading this video from my other channel. I already uploaded it to my other channel just to show you monetization policies, right? They make you, check these boxes or not check them about the things that are in your video that might be similar to something that's not monetizable, right? They have these different categories, appropriate language, and they show you these things, right? What's allowed and what isn't allowed, adult content, right? These things. So there was no really, I didn't swear on my, that other channel. There's no adult content. There's no violence, any graphic images. And this could be something I could be showing you a clip of CNN, and some of you guys, understand this, that I have to edit out. They're showing you what's going on with the Israeli war. And there could be a couple guys talking, and they're showing a video of the Israeli war. And YouTube will flag that, right? They'll allow CNN to put it up there. Shocking content. Again, my videos don't have this stuff in it. Harmful acts. If you talk about any sort of stunts and things like this, even if you mention them, they'll demonetize your video. Drug content, right? enabling dishonest behavior. And so that's kind of truther stuff, right? Against that kind of thing. Hateful, I guess that's criminal behavior there. And then hateful, derogatory content, hate speech, firearms. They don't let you talk about firearms, sensitive events, things that are, have to do with whatever's going on in the world that might be sensitive to people, controversial issues. And so my other channel didn't have any of this. These other channels that I have to sort of walk the line with these things. But, with all those things, they can pretty much regulate everything I just showed you, everything that's on YouTube, and demonetize it, and then you're working for free. So that's how they effectively, and we're not even getting into the community guideline strikes, medical misinformation, talking about the bloop, all that stuff. And, and the bots flagging you just using these words and demonetizing your videos. But also they flag your videos and they just won't recommend them. They won't send them out to your, they won't send notifications out to your subscribers. They won't put them out there, to compete against other videos like yours. And so this is another way that they've gotten rid of all this information. They've effectively hidden the truth community. Okay, so I want to get into the Biden stuff here in a moment. I just want to wrap this thing up about the big event in 2001 and all this stuff about them just erasing all this, valuable data. Now, there's a couple things about this. One problem is there's too much information out there. There just is. And there's all this disinformation out there. So, that was one of the ways that they censored or watered down everything by just putting out all this information. And so many people just putting out their own crap and, without really, knowing what's going on, and like a lot of just, bogus truther kind of stuff that's, people are stupid or they're just not, It's not disinformation, but it's worthless. And sometimes people are just lying on purpose to get views. And then there's the disinformation agents that are, working for the government or whatever. And it's just so much information. So, that's part of the problem. And then this other way that they're censoring and picking winners and losers, promoting things. They promoted the QB stuff. There was videos about the QB stuff. Alex Jones had a video out, and this woman who was like a nightmare, I forget what her name is, but she, YouTube had their trending videos, and they put those up on YouTube trends. So they were actually promoting that bogus QB stuff. And so that's part of it. That's part of what they do. Flooding with information and promoting the stuff that's bogus and, stuff that they can mock later on, stuff that they can demonize. And, the stuff that's disinformation by the, whatever it is, the agencies, 3-letter agencies. But then there's the, the strangling of real truther channels, and then, demonetization and shadow banning and things. And then, it's just, this is where we are. And plus, everybody doubts everything now. You went from where people just believed in the official story, where everybody doubts everything, including the stuff on the internet. Rightfully so, because there's a lot of stuff that isn't accurate. And so when the big event happened, they pushed this idea of thermite, which I found out to be completely bogus. This is why my videos were important on this subject. Because years later, I found out that thermite was never really used in controlled demolition, because you have to apply it directly on the metal girders. Many buildings, including those ones, the big event buildings, encase their girders in cement. So that meant thermite was not to be used. But what they use is, in controlled demolitions, the biggest ones that were taken down using charges and things like this. But then I found out about these micro nukes, and that went along with the fact that all these first responders were getting thyroid cancer. More thyroid cancer happened with the first responders than happened with Chernobyl. And think about that, right? And so there's a higher rate. And so that was another indication. And what micro nukes do is they powderize, when they take down a building with a micro nuke. And then the radiation fallout that's there. So it's all, that was unique in my videos, right? Some of these discoveries I made. And with all the information, plus, I was late to the party. Like talked about some of these things, but I didn't make official videos till everybody had moved on to, it was past, like, there was like the pizza time kind of thing. And nobody cared about it anymore. And they quickly censored it. They demonetized the videos and then the rest of it. And so, like, this is a lot of faulty information has been accepted by people who, cared about this thing when, whatever it was back when it was the big thing. And a lot of disinformation was put out there. And then people, gravitated to this disinformation, and that became the sort of the backup narrative to the mainstream narrative, Thermite being a part of it, right? And so this is how they've done it. Like, they've just, and some of it was self-inflicted by people who really didn't, weren't ready to talk about things because they weren't clear in their own, ability to perceive what's going on, their own inability to, people inability to have like abstract thought, and people who couldn't really become truthers. A lot of people want to be truthers, but they can't. They just don't have the mental capacity for critical thinking skills, and they just don't get it. Like, it's beyond them, right? And they're putting out content, and so it's just all that stuff. And so that's where we are today. The internet has been compromised, right? They've slammed the door, like I was saying in my last video. And so let's get into this other stuff here. Okay, so I went for a walk, and I just, it's a very important piece here. What's happened in social media and on the internet. So back in 2000, the 1990s, I don't know when YouTube became a thing, 2004, 2005, whatever it was, when YouTube sort of, started to take off. And Facebook came in whenever that was. And for those entities, the biggest thing was growth. Getting as many people on their platform, using their platforms as much as possible. In fact, Netflix did a documentary, I forget what it's called, back when the fake news thing narrative was taken off. And they demonstrated how these social media groups would just feed people so-called conspiracy theories and undesirable content. They would promote it without any discretion, even when they were starting to censor. This is when they were already starting to censor. So it was a documentary trying to demonize these social media platforms for looking at all of us, all of their users, from a business perspective. And from a business perspective, this business model, usage and growth were the most important things. And so they catered to so-called conspiracy theorists because we were one of the biggest demographics out there, and people would go down the rabbit hole and watch one video after another. And so they pushed these things, right? Because they didn't care what you believed. They just catered to you as a customer. They looked at you from a business perspective, right? And the results were that mainstream media lost, and traditional content lost, and independent, truther and just independent people out there making content, newsworthy, about the news or whatever it might have been, was out competing all these traditional systems of power and control. And so, the Hillary Clinton election debacle happened, fake news narrative came about, and conspiracy theorists, they took it to another level. And now they no longer looked at you as from the economic standpoint, which was, it was best for them to give the people what they wanted, to give people what they wanted to see, which was truther videos. But then they profiled all of us, and we were considered now an undesirable, right, a danger to society, and bad actors, bad people, even though most of us had never done anything criminal. And certainly what we were putting up on the internet was within our constitutional rights of free speech. We were all viewed as negative, right? Undesirable people, bad people. And this is a kind of profiling and censorship. I already shot the clips you're about to see, and Joe Biden says that, he talks about democracy and freedom of speech, but he's somebody who's, and the people in the Democratic Party have been some of the worst. The Republicans are just as bad in different ways of suppressing these things and categorizing people as undesirable, which is basically another form of racism, right? Another form of homophobia, where based in people's beliefs, you are demonized, and our beliefs are nearly identical. Like our beliefs, there's liberal people who are truthers who come to the truth community. There's conservatives that come to the truth community. There's people who are independent. And we all have our different views and narratives that we subscribe to and believe in. So our beliefs don't even line up. We're not a religious group. We're not a religion. We're not a ethnic group, right? We're not a sexual, like we're not one sexual orientation or another, right? I mean, there's gay people who are truthers, right? There's all these different demographics that, the demographics they usually divide you under don't exist in the truth community. We are clearly a diverse group. We are, one of the most diverse group, if not the most diverse group in America, because we all share something. Whether we used to vote Democrat or used to vote Republican or didn't vote at all, and we were religious or we're atheists or whatever it is, right? Whatever those things that people put, the boxes that people check when you fill out a form, some sort of, form where they ask you about the groups you identify with, the groups that you're a part of. We belong to all those groups. Like there's people in every one of those demographics that's part of the truth community. And so what is our crime, right? What is our the one thing that we share that's so horrible? We don't believe in the official story. We don't believe in the official frickin' story. Like that's our crime. And the official story is put up there by proven liars and deceivers, corporate liars, media liars, political liars, scientific liars, religious liars, right? Whatever it is. These organizations that uphold the official story are all proven fraudulent and liars, and they're full of conspiratorial type of behavior, criminal type of behavior, sociopathic type of behavior. They're murderers. They murder people in different ways. They suppress people. They suppress truth and history, and I mean everything that they do hurts the collective, right? It hurts all of us. These are bad actors. They're the real problem. And so if our crime is that we don't believe in the official story, then we're not terrorists. We're not criminals. We're not aggressive. Most of us are. All we are doing is talking and giving our opinion about things. Many of us aren't involved in any sort of a movement. We don't even protest, right? We don't boycott. We don't do anything that's aggressive other than say things that we believe to be the truth and call out lies, right? And so what's the threat then? Well, the threat is that when you have a system based in lies, the truth can take that system down. The truth is dangerous, right? You speaking the truth can take the system down because the system is, I've said this over and over again. It is, it feeds off of lies and evil. And so the truth would, the truth about our system, and if people realized, I mean, just in terms of the currency alone, if you realize a currency has no value and the economy is completely, fabricated as a deception, well, that knowledge alone could bring the system down. A loss of faith in a system that's built on lies, it's the deception and the perception that people have that the system is strong that keeps it going. Because if people knew the truth, then the system would crumble and fall apart. I've said that before, like I'm not even that big on everybody being a truther, because if that happened, the system we're 100% dependent on would collapse immediately. And that would be good, but also bad, right? It would be good for the more important reasons, but it would be bad for, our immediate survival and our immediate comforts and things, right? When the system collapses, it's going to be hard because we're all habituated to the system and dependent on it. And so, it would be good when it collapses because it should. It's a bad system. It's evil. And someone's going to have to bite the bullet and some generation's going to have to suck it up because it needs to happen. Like it has to happen. It's going to happen. It's happening, right? So, and, suppressing the truth isn't going to, stop it from happening. But how does that play out? How does everything I just say play out in the practical terms? So, back when my channel was popping, I would put the title of the video, and I could use the terms, right? I didn't have to say the big event in 2001. I didn't have to say, the big event in January. I didn't have to say the bloop, right? Like I could actually say those words. But now their computer, learning stuff. First, they take your channel and you as a person, and they put you in a category of undesirable channels, right? That you're not you're the opposite of the authoritative news and these things. And you're put in these truther categories or whatever it is. And you're now given a different treatment. You're treated as an undesirable, and they're going to try to hide you like you're the crazy uncle that no one wants to invite to the dinner party, right? Like they want to hide you away. And so then everything that you do is going to be scrutinized differently. So if you use a term that's a current event, like if I can't put the word Israel in my videos or some of these other things, and there's high risk that they're going to demonetize it just on the title alone. So I have to choose my titles carefully, right? I have to choose my words within the video context, the narrative. I have to choose those carefully because they'll flag it and demonetize it, first of all. And then, they're not going to promote it. They're not going to send it out there if they say, all right, this is this kind of video. And so you have to, navigate that whole system. I mean, this is what happens when people are prejudiced against, right? When there's racism or homophobia or what all these things that they cry about and they say how horrible it is. They're doing it to the people in truth community all the time. They are, treating us like less thans, treating us like we, don't, deserve the same kind of rights and things for just the simple fact that we don't believe in the official story. We're doing nothing else. When there's people doing criminal activity everywhere, and they're not flagging those people on any of these platforms. And so, it's the downfall of America is right there. Not because, whatever we would do or not do as truthers, it's the way they're treating us and the way that they have demonized us inappropriately and unfairly is the end of America. The belief of America is a democracy and there's freedoms, because there's clearly not. It is a system where, the awards for merit, based on your work, it used to be that way. The third master of the Sajmark system used to come to America, and he'd say, it's a wonderful system because it awards for merit. Because he comes from India, where there's a caste system, where there's people who are born into a ceiling. They all have their ceilings, and even the preferable castes, there are jobs they can't do, and their marriages are arranged and things like this. Where in America, people come here, poor immigrants, right, who were, come to America with nothing and become billionaires. I mean, not even millionaires, but some of them become billionaires. And so the system used to award for work and merit, but now it's become something else, right? The customer is no longer right. And businesses, and again, I'm not a big capitalist person or an economic person, but this is, the downfall of all that. So I can tell you every word I say, everything I put in the title of my videos, the way I express myself, every photo, every clip is scrutinized, and I'm already targeted and as an undesirable, and, these things. I can feel it. All of us who do truther videos feel it. And so that's how, they wreck the internet. Like that's how they betrayed what they believe in. Google saying don't be evil, and, Democrats supposed to be being about democracy, and, all of it. They've played themselves, right? The way that they, especially these liberals that are supposed to be about, defending. I mean, YouTube has a whole category of not attacking protected groups, but you can say anything about an anti-vaxxer. You can say anything about a conspiracy theorist, but you utter a word that sounds like it's homophobic or racist or anti-this or anti-that or whatever it is, then, you'll be immediately demonized and censored or whatever it is, right? Deplatformed. I mean, it's just, even if you it was misinterpreted what you said. And so there's protected groups out there, but the behavior is still ongoing. Racist behavior, hateful behavior, demonizing behavior, saying, hey, these people are stupid. I mean, just the way they treat Trump supporters. And I don't like Trump supporters. Like, Trump supporters are a nightmare. Like, not all of them, but, a good number of them. I don't like Cubies. They're certainly not worse than liberals and Democrats who think they're so intelligent and think they're so progressive. I mean, and they have more power, the liberals and the Democrats. And they're clearly not any better, right? And the behaviors that are, completely tolerated against Trumpers The people who had voted for Trump are somehow not even human beings anymore, right? They're just evil. Like they're, whatever. They're supporting this guy who wants to be a dictator and a racist. But like, look at what we got now. And we're looking at the censorship and the control. And so, this is what's happened. And it's happened very quickly, right? People ask me, are you scared about your life, when I was becoming a popular truther? And I'm like, no, because the stuff that they're doing now is going to happen first, right? There's going to be levels of it. Like they don't go for the jugular right away. They try different things first to silence people. They don't have to kill you when they can just deplatform you and demonize you and actually use you as an example for other people, right? And so, like, that's, that wasn't happening years and years ago, but in 2016, it started 15, 16, 17, really 2017. And it was already, the ideas are being floated out there. And then look at how bad it's gotten. And so they've erased all of this. They've erased this whole movement. And, you can find it, but it's now a fringe movement. And the majority of people don't have access to it and don't work for it. And even people who are into it can't find stuff anymore. And so they've disappeared the whole movement, right? So this is part of our history. It's a blemish. And, it shows you that the system's going to collapse because the only reason to do it is because the truth, anything that goes against the official story is a threat to the system. That's what they're saying. You're a threat to the system. So that must mean the system's based in lies. If a truth or just a differing of opinions, if you just have a difference of opinion, because it's not even like it's a movement, like we're proposing we should do this or this, we're just mostly calling out the lies. I mean, that's the number one thing of the truth community, calling out the hypocrisy, calling out the lies. And that's a threat to the system? Well, then the system is a deception, right? That's the only answer. Like anybody who argues that is just, being fundamentally dishonest. Because, again, there's no real threat here other than people no longer believe in the official story. And so they're saying if people don't believe in the official story, the system will come down. And why can't the official story compete? Right? Why can't the official story compete with individual people giving a different opinion, or giving a different interpretation, or giving different, set of like facts that are more based in reality? Right? Why would that be a threat to the system? If the official story is the right one, then why wouldn't it be easier to accept, right? If it was the truthful one, why wouldn't the majority of people accept it? And so, there it is. Anyways, let me get back to it here. Okay, one more thing I want to add. I'm editing this, and I just thought this is an important piece. A lot of you guys know some of this, or at least you know overall what's happening. I think most people understand what's happening. Some people would say it's a good thing, and truthers should be censored. All these people who agree with it, whatever it is, right? And so it isn't exactly anything new. There's things that I'm saying in a different way probably than you've heard before, probably than I've thought about it before. But one of the reasons I've been talking about this lately, it's really effed up. Like, it shows you a society that can't withstand differing opinions and challenges to the official story is a system or a government, in this case both, that's on the verge of collapse, right? Let's say they looked at us as being viruses, people in the truth community, right, that were, poisonous or viruses. If they had a strong immune system, it wouldn't matter. There are times where, if everybody's happy in your society and everybody's fulfilled and everybody's competent and functioning well, there are no worries, right? People who are, oppositional, it's like, why can't you be happy? What's wrong with you? If you're aligned with the divine principles and you're aligned with God, then you can allow differing viewpoints. You can allow all these things to flow, and, it's just something that's there, right? Like, it's not really a threat because your society, your everything is so strong. Relationships are so strong, right? But when you're in a fragile type of situation where you're hanging on by a thread, I was in a situation like that in my first marriage where the family was just about to go over the cliff and it couldn't handle things, right? We couldn't handle one more thing. Like, people have been in this situation where you're just, depressed, or you're miserable, and you're hanging on by a thread, and, one more thing will put you over the cliff, right? Like you just can't take another thing. And so a strong, a strong system isn't worried about something like differing opinions. And if people are happy and people are functioning well, they're not at risk of falling for, if they're saying that we're evil and our ideas are evil, well then, the system wouldn't be falling apart and being, divided in such a way, right? And so these are all signs that our empire is collapsing. I mean, it's always like this. If it's that fragile that they have to censor everybody and do it in such a diabolical way, in a corporate way, then for one, they're admitting that we have something to offer, and two, they're admitting they're on the wrong side of everything, because that's the kind of things that tyrants and dictators and evil people do, is they silence, criticism. They crush dissension, and that's what's happening right now. Like we've reached a new level, and this is, we're that much closer to our system, our civilization, our government, our all of it, our economy collapsing. Like it's just right there. And one of the things that we're supposed to do is witness. Like we don't have the power to change things, but witnessing is seeing something and first of all connecting to the divinity within you, so it goes back to the source. And so that's like when people are spiritual people and they get closer and closer to their interconnection to the divine, then the feedback loop in terms of, they say the wheels of God turn slowly, but everything is eventually dealt with. And like, for me, I feel like, I don't need to do anything because the divine system will, right? I mean, it inevitably brings everything back that's an aberration, an abomination back to its original source, right? It cleanses deception. It cleanses evil. It cleanses things that are anti-God and anti-nature. They eventually come back to the source, right? Everything gets righted. It might take a long time, but all of our freedom of choice, all of our egotistical freedom of choice eventually will be, dealt with in one way or another. I have full faith in that. And so when you have full faith in it, like you can, allow people, just inside yourself to have the wrong beliefs because, you know that in your life when you've been on the wrong side of things, you eventually righted the ship through the divine process, or hopefully that's happened in your life. And so you can see it in the lives of others, that eventually things will go back to the way they should be. Just because there's contingencies, and if you go against the divine will, you immediately are going to get consequences and things that are going to bring you back to your soul's path and what you're supposed to be doing here. And by doing that, by being aware of this and saying these things or, feeling these things, you're witnessing, and it's going back to, the system of checks and balances that exist in the divine system everywhere. But the other thing is just to name what's going on. And I feel like it's time for me to do this on a regular basis, to name it, because, I turned on the news for lunch, and I haven't been watching the news at all. Fox has no value for me because I'm not going to cover it here. So I watch CNN and MSNBC because they always provide good content for me. But I don't watch it anymore because it's anti-Trump full time. And it's just the same old stuff. There's nothing to say about it. Like, put him in jail or not. Like, either put him in jail or, like, let him run as a legitimate candidate. And I don't want Trump. I don't want Trump any more than Biden. I don't want either one of them. Doesn't matter. I want both or either. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Nothing's going to change the path that we're on. The election is irrelevant to me in every possible way. But it's annoying to see them, constantly talk about how evil Trump is and then just put him in jail, right? Either you have something on him, they can put him in jail anytime they want, whether he's done anything or not. But their world revolves around Trump so much that they talk about him. That's all they talk about. Every time I turn on CNN and MSC, there's something about Trump. Of course, there's a trial going on. And it's going to be that way all the way to the election. It's everything that we've heard. It's nothing new. And it's just the same old story being regurgitated over and over again. And I'm sure their viewers are tuning it out because, they're over Biden. Like they don't, they have a Biden problem. Like, deal with your Biden problem. But anyways, this thing is really screwed up what they're doing. Like, it's next level of evil. And it's definitely, it's reached its, like its epoch, right? It's just like its full manifestation. Anyway, let's get into the other stuff here. Okay, so this is Biden a couple days ago. I want to get to the White House press conference thing, whatever that thing's called. Not the press conference, the dinner for the press that's supposed to be funny. I have that up. I haven't looked at that yet. My internet sucks, and so I'm going back to my old internet that they had a big issue. They were down for like a week, and that's why I switched to Verizon. And I have a whole story about that, which I'll get to. So just I'm really just struggling here lately with all this stuff. The censorship and the internet. But anyways, here's Jojo Magoo addressing the protests.
We've all seen the images, and they put to the test two fundamental American principles. Excuse me. The first is the right to free speech and for people to peacefully assemble and make their voices heard. The second is the rule of law. Both must be upheld. We are not an authoritarian nation where we silence people or squash dissent. The American people are...
Okay, so that's not true. It's not true historically, but specifically with Jojo Magoo. Like Jojo Magoo threatened social media, like he's part of the reason for censorship. He threatened to take away, whatever their special privileges, title, whatever it's called, which allows them to have content put out by individual people but not be liable for that content. If they take that away from the social media giants, then they couldn't conduct business, right? They couldn't, they'd have to scrutinize everything that's put up. And so his administration threatened to take that away from Facebook and YouTube and all these places. And so, he was censoring. Like, they're the worst, and Obama was one of the hardest and worst people on whistleblowers, right?
Heard. In fact, peaceful protest is in the best tradition of how Americans respond to consequential issues. But neither are we a lawless country. We're a civil society, and order must prevail.
So again, they got killed on the defund the police. That defund the police protests was the only thing that was playing well for Trump in last election. People were freaked out by what the liberals were doing. Remember, they took over cities and that thing called Chaz and Portland and that whole thing, right? They made they were just handing over it was bad, and nobody wanted that, right? Like defund the police, and the Democrats are having to walk back all those things that are now coming back around. Also, the closing down of the businesses that they pushed for under Trump.
Throughout our history, we've often faced moments like this because we are a big, diverse, free-thinking, and freedom-loving nation. In moments like this, there are always those who rush in to score political points.
Oh, yeah, like you never do. So he's above that kind of thing.
But this isn't a moment for politics.
Yeah, exactly what it is.
A moment for clarity. So let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is.
Okay, let's be clear. The peaceful protests are protected. Violent protests aren't. Dick Van Dyke was saying these protests are a distraction from the Supreme Court rigging the election for Trump to win by not stopping him from winning legally, by blocking the ability of the the other whatever it is to prosecute him. And so that's Dick Van Dyke's level of being a conspiracy theorist or a truther. It's the whole thing's kind of interesting. I got more to cover on this. We'll go through this thing here first.
It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law.
Against the law.
Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest.
He's getting hammered on this. He's polling at 42%, Trump at 49%. Trump can't get over 50%. So they need a third-party candidate for Trump to get elected. Or people just aren't going to vote, whatever it is, right? But the majority of Americans will just never vote for Trump. But Biden is seen as worse, and he's going senile. And so, Israel's a disaster for him because the youth is the only thing he's got, a sort of an advantage And the youth is just over this guy, right? Especially with the Israel thing.
Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not peaceful protest. It's against the law.
Against the law.
Dissent is essential to democracy.
It's essential.
Dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education. Look, it's basically a matter of fairness. It's a matter of what's right. There's the right.
So if dissent worked and he values young people's vote, why has he not come out against Israel's genocide? They've killed something like 30,000 or more people now. Half of those kids, 45% of those people are kids. And, he murdered kids with drones, and no one seems to care about that. He killed 8 kids in Afghanistan. He's a child murderer, right? And so, all this stuff is useless because, he more than anybody supposedly needs young people's votes, and he's not pandering to them. And he's a panderer, right?
To protest, but not the right to cause chaos.
Okay, so that's Jojo Magoo.
The Israeli government decision to close down the Al Jazeera TV channel in Israel. This has been happening throughout the day, and Sebastian Usher is our Middle East analyst at the BBC World Service. And we've had...
So Israel has going against freedom of press. They talk about how, Kennedy said how there's much more freedom in Israel than in America. Freedom of the press, freedom for the minority populations to express themselves. And Al Jazeera is clearly not, that radical, news organization. And Israel is censoring them, right? While the genocide is going on. And so why not comment on that? Why aren't the Republicans and, Trump, because Trump is giving Israel everything they want. Trump will send in troops. I'm sure he'll give them military support. And so, that's bad. Then the Democrats, they kind of don't want to piss off their base, but they're back in Israel.
Had some news in just in the last half an hour or so, Sebastian, from Frank Gardner, our security correspondent in Jerusalem, who says that Israeli police have already raided the offices of the Qatar-based channel.
So they're raiding the places, right? So they're going in there, and this is a news organization with armed guards for what? With armed military, armed police, and
And that was just within hours, wasn't it, of that decision?
So that happened. So we'll get back to the Israeli thing in a bit. President Biden forgets date of January. Boop. Capitol riots at glitzy fundraiser hosted by Michael Douglas.
President Biden's Hollywood supporters is coming to his defense over concerns over his age and mental fitness.
The people that I've talked to and everybody that I have say he's as sharp as a tack. He's fine. We all have an issue with memories. As we get older, we forget names, something. He's overcome a stutter in his life. And
Yeah, that's not it, bro. He's senile. I mean, that, Yeah, and everyone you talk to is a Democrat or a Democratic supporter or a Biden supporter, so that doesn't count. Plus, you're a paid act. You're a guy who gets paid to lie. You pretend to be other people, or used to. Now you just kind of suck at it. Given that performance in Benjamin Franklin, you've always sucked, but now you're worse because you're senile.
Times he might, but let's just say that his entire cabinet, including his vice president, everybody in his cabinet, would be more than happy to work with him again in the next term.
Boom. You're slurring your speech there too, bro. President Joe Biden suffered yet another gaffe Thursday as he mixed up the date of his January 6th during a glitzy fundraiser hosted by Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones. He said, "We'll never forget the dark days of June 6th, January 6th. Excuse me." So he said June 6th because of maybe Juneteenth. Who knows what's going on with this guy? But that happened. Monica Lewinsky joins Taylor Swift's asylum trend with savage meme poking fun at Bill Clinton affair. And so there's Monica Lewinsky now. Lewinsky. And there's Taylor Swift. And here's the meme. You wouldn't last an hour in the asylum where they raised me, which I guess is a reference. She's got her pronouns here. Monica Lewinsky's just getting it done. You should identify as a fourth grader and learn what a pronoun is. Donald J. Trump Jr. I identify as a conspiracy theorist. My pronouns are I told you so. Donald Trump Jr. is a total tool. He's just like all the bad stuff that Trump has without any sense of likability or any of the... Like, he's the worst of Donald Trump. And, big game hunter and things like that, killing animals just for sport. That's just, one of the many things. But he's just an idiot. And he's not a truther, right? But, everybody wants to be now, like in their different way. I showed you this guy, Joe Kennedy Jr., or whatever it is.
Saying he wants to suspend the Constitution so he can go after his enemies, after his critics, after the press. He is running to use his power to punish his enemies, silence his opponents, and incite more.
Okay, so I thought this was a picture at first with audio. Come to find out you really standing behind this woman just biting on oxygen while on national TV. Who's in charge of the image? Who's the image consultant? Who is the person that's in charge of saying, "Hey, Ronnie, can you come sit down? Come sit down. No, not in front of the camera, behind the camera. Come sit with us. Come sit with us. Somebody go get him."
So, the guy's just so weird looking. The Kennedys, like that genetic inbred family, right? That's a cousin. That's a producer of cousin marriage right there. It's a product of cousin marriage. Joe Biden orders doomsday planes that can survive nuclear fallout in $13 billion contract. Because it's getting real, right? They're pushing for this. They have been for a while. So this was disturbing on a lot of levels.
Welcome all you soggy people.
Did she actually just go, soggy people? Look at that one more time.
Welcome all you soggy people.
Soggy people?
You soggy people. You soggy people. You soggy people.
Susan Sarandon's become a Nazi. Classic Susan.
Napoleon said, Napoleon Bonaparte, not the Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, movie reference from 2004. Good one, Susan.
War is when the government tells you who your enemy is. Revolution is when you figure it out for yourself.
In Israel, everyone would want to make you a salad and be your best friend. In Gaza, they would chop your fucking head off and rape you and dismember you and then rape all your dismembered organs. Who do you think your enemy is, Susan?
Our enemy is hate.
You seem like really loving people chanting for the genocide of Jews nonstop.
So this guy, Daniel Ryan Spalding, stand-up comedian, TV writer, influencer, power gay based in New York City. Cameo greetings. You can get a cameo message. I'm Island boy, Island boy. Here's a Susan Sarandon video, which he's pinned because, all of it.
Welcome.
And you can see here there's no comments. See, right?
Oh my God, Dave!
And so he's got plenty of comments here. There's, that. But he's turned off the comments here. That's everything you need to know. Okay, so first let's cover the Susan Sarandon part. Susan Sarandon is a very hyper-liberal. She was against Joe Biden. She's kind of a Bernie Sanders person. And she didn't vote for Joe Biden. They slammed her because they were like, what do you want, Trump? And she was like, there's no difference. So she sticks to her guns as being a liberal person. There are a lot of things that she believes in. I don't get into the whole belief thing, right? Like, there are people who are unconscious sheeple who is impossible to have a conversation with. And then there are other people who, semi-agree with some of your points of view and you can have a reasonable conversation with. And there's people who there's things that they believe in and you just don't talk about those things, right? But it's not like I get along or like truthers better. I believe we have more of the same shared beliefs, but that doesn't mean, there's any sort of, connection there, right? And so to me, none of this stuff, beliefs just don't matter anymore. But Susan Sarandon at least is consistent with what she believes in. And for this guy to call her a Nazi because she made a hand movement is ridiculous, right? Like, it's just stupid. She's not doing that. Like, Susan Sarandon is very hyper-liberal and human rights-oriented. She was probably pro-Palestine for years, but it wasn't a major issue. She hasn't been slamming Israel in public until this latest genocide. And so many other people in Hollywood, John Cusack and these other celebrities who have been, they have relationships with Jewish people in Hollywood. Hollywood has a lot of Jewish people in there in power positions in the entertainment world. And so they're not anti-Jewish. They're not, calling for Nazism. They're calling for the end of this abomination in Palestine, right? And the fact this guy turned off his comments, it wasn't well received, right? Like, I'm sure there's, you can't be this far gone. I mean, it was racist what he said about the Palestinian people and the difference between, they'll make you a salad and, do all these nice things for you in Israel. And in Palestine, there are these horrible people. And he keeps on doubling and tripling down here as he moves forward.
Our enemy is racism.
Israel is a Jewish nation, but it's also a multiracial, multicultural society where all of its citizens have equal rights, including Arab Muslims, Arab Christians, Druze people, and Bedouins, and Greek Orthodox people. In the West Bank and Gaza, their leadership are terrorists, and they basically live under Sharia law. And black people in Gaza, by the way, are ghettoized into this community, which is called Al-Abid, which literally translates to the slave.
I have belonged to a couple of groups on Facebook, and I don't see that much anymore. Maybe Facebook is censoring them. One of them was like Jews that live in Israel that are pro-Palestine, I forget what it's called, Jews for the Freedom of Palestine. But these are Jewish people, and they post a ton of videos that come from Israel, and sometimes from Jewish people, sometimes from Palestinians, of the police or Jewish people abusing the Palestinian people in Israel, as well as videos about them abusing Christians and other people, or black Jews. Like, it's there. There's a lot of ugliness, and then these protests that are very bad, like, some of the things that they're saying. And so, it's not like Palestine is some perfect place, and the Arab world is, they both suck, and just like everybody else sucks, right? But to pretend one side is so much better than the other, and that side's the one with the bigger army and a history of stealing the land of the other side, right? It's just silly, right? This guy is like ridiculous. I mean, no wonder he had to turn his comments off.
Our enemy is colonization.
Israel is the only example in the world of successful decolonization. Zionism is an indigenous rights movement because Jews are from Judea. Arabs are from Arabia. Israel is the indigenous homeland of the Jewish people. It's the opposite of colonialism.
Like, this was some of the dumbest crap I've ever... The guy's talking like he knows something, and yet knows absolutely nothing. So this is the story from the Jewish Bible, the Old Testament, right? This is their story. This is from Wikipedia, by the way. He could have looked this up. Abraham is known as the patriarch of the Israelite people through Isaac, the son born to him, and Sarah in their old age, his wife Sarah, who was barren, and the patriarch of Arabs through his son Ishmael, born to Abraham and Hagar, Sarah's Egyptian servant. So these people were, they're the same people, right? The Arabs and the Jews come from the same bloodlines and the same original people. And Israel did not get conquered. I mean, the Jews did not get conquered in Israel. It wasn't that they were colonized by Arabs. They've been beefing since that time, whatever that was, 3,000 years ago or something. It was before Jesus. It's somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000 and 2,000 years ago. And so, whatever that was, it's a long time ago, and they've been beefing ever since. The difference here is Israel has the backing of America, and it has an army, an air force, a navy, and the Palestinian people have rocks. And so they've been taking their land, and the country was called Palestine, and most of the Jews were out of there. And he's saying that Jews live in Israel, that's their land, as decolonization. But there are Jews all throughout Europe. There's Jews in America, right? Are they all supposed to go back to Israel? Is that what you're saying? They belong there, and the Arabs should leave America and Europe. The whole thing about colonization or not is silly, because in nature, you don't have territory. It's not given to you by God. You got to fight for it. You got to fight for your territory. Like every bird, I watch it all the time. I watch nature all the time. There's hummingbirds, cute little hummingbirds, and they're really dickish about our hummingbird feeder. And you see territorial behavior all over the place. Like it's just the frogs who are looking to mate, and we have red-winged blackbirds chasing each other off, and they're all calling to try to attract a female. They flap their wings. I mean, there's all this stuff right now going on in the spring. There's all this territorial behavior, and it's aggression. Aggression's there. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it is the way it is. And so it's what you get to, it's what you have based in your ability to claim it, right? And for that reason, them doing what they're doing to the Palestinian people is, there's some natural order of things to that. But the problem with it is they're pretending to be the heroes and the victims. Israeli people, Jewish people are big on victim consciousness, and they're trying to claim they're the victims, and they're certainly not. They came into that country. It was called Palestine. And again, you can say it's promised to them by the Bible, but then so are all these other lands that are now occupied by other people. And it's the same people. Genetically, they're very similar, right? I mean, there's a mix of so many genetics. There's Caucasian people. There are people from the Caucasus Mountains, Russian people, and people from Europe, and all these people around that area, African people. There's all these different, types of people that are, if they took their DNA, they would find there's a very similar DNA makeup between Muslims and Jews, right? And so, like, this thing he's saying is just silly. It's a genocide. Like, they're doing a genocide and pretending to be the victims, and they're being backed by America, and the Americans aren't into it. Americans don't want to pay. Our economy's struggling. Most Americans don't want to pay for this war, and don't want to pay, the support that we give to Israel, and the influence that Israel has on our politics and some of these other things in terms of their lobbying group. Most Americans that know about it are not into it. And if they did know about it, they wouldn't be into it, right? So that's what this is about. None of these things this guy's saying. It's just silly, right? I mean, what he's saying here is just absolutely ridiculous.
Our enemy is greed.
Greed, as in the greedy Jews? You don't sound anti-Semitic at all, Suze.
She didn't say greedy Jews, and she didn't imply greedy Jews. Like, that's a horrible thing to say. Somebody who's probably pretty big about being in a protective group themselves, and he's saying something like this, right? He's saying like she's saying something that she isn't, that could get her canceled. Like the same stuff with Kanye when he said DEFCON 4 and it was purposefully misinterpreted. Kanye shouldn't have said it, but what he said was that he was going to go DEFCON 4 on Jewish people and social media, which is a big difference between them saying it was something else, like what this guy's doing here. Like, that's just evil what he's doing, right? You would disagree with what she's saying, but you're twisting her words purposefully for your own, your own whatever it is, right? Your own silly little Instagram post.
And our enemy is silence.
Your enemy is not silence, girl. You are loud. You are very, very loud.
The silence of those who look away.
Why is a war happening, Susan? Who started the war?
This is a 3,000-year-old, 5,000-year-old beef, whatever that started, with Abraham, right? Abraham, God instructed him to sacrifice his only son, or his other son, his first, his son with his wife. And because God's a real dick in the Old Testament, right? This whole thing is a joke, right? I mean,
Speaking inconvenient truths can lose you your livelihood.
No, supporting an Islamist terrorist movement that wants to destroy America and the Western world, that will make you lose your livelihood, Susan Sarandon.
It can lose you friends. It may lose you family.
Are you seriously encouraging people and empowering people to end friendships and relationships with family members to support a terrorist movement right now, Susan?
okay, so what's up with the giant polo shirt? What she was saying is that there is a lot of money power and power behind Israel and Jewish people in positions of power, and that if you speak out against this, you might lose friends, you might lose job opportunities, you might be canceled even. That's what she was saying. She wasn't saying, she wasn't encouraging people to, she was saying that's might happen. You're taking some risk to do it, which not really, because, she's doing it, right? Like, this is, what we experience in the truth community is much different than she experiences in terms of these celebrity movements. This is one that's a little bit more controversial because of the different demographics involved in Hollywood. But, the whole thing, like, just an absolute mess. One more segment to go here. Alec J. Baldwin reflects on 40 years of sobriety, admits he does miss drinking. There's China Phillips. We saw her before. Remember? It's on my other channel. Anyway, that's all, Alec. Robert Kraft, campus leaders must show courage and stop radical protests from poisoning the young minds. Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots and the Kraft, Kraft products. He brings NFL players to Israel all the time to show them how great it is over there. There's Trump here. Trump's criminal charges and Biden's age rank as the voters' top worries about the candidates. Well, they're either going to look, they're just too old. Look at these guys. Trump is really aged. He just doesn't look good. Like, whatever's going on with his skin and, his hair. And they're just too old. Like, these guys are just too old, right? These are the oldest candidates ever. And they were the oldest candidates last time they ran. The two oldest candidates to run against each other. They owned that record last time. And now again, right? And they look alike, right? They're the same guy. Same expressions, just all of it. Again here. David Pecker testimony at Trump trial reveals the seedy underbelly of this tabloid journalism. David Pecker works for the National Enquirer. I've covered him before. And David Pecker has got an interesting name. This is completely name related. Biden administration faces pressure to step up its response to anti-Semitic incidences on college campuses, and yet they're losing the youth. And so, this is going south quickly. IRS's audits are about to surge. Here's most at risk. And it is big corporations with upwards of $25 million worth of assets in the year 2026. And so they are going after corporations that'll just leave this country. They want to, and again, I'm not, whatever the corporations do to cheat taxes and all these things, right? But when you heavily tax corporations, they go to other countries. That's just what happens. If they're, if they're going after them, this is a way of them saying, we want to bankrupt the, the American economy. And make it, be an excuse. Who were the outsiders at Columbia University's Hamilton Hall? They're saying that there's agitators at these protests, but at the, the protests that happened in the big event in January, and then the protests that happened before that with the Black Lives Matter, there was total agitators, and there was clearly a CIA connection, FBI connection there. But they didn't call that out, right? But they're calling this out. Dick Van Dyke went in on this as well. Gestapo administration, Trump likens Biden's White House to Nazis in wild attack. Okay, what a marathon that was. I just went through and edited this, and wow. And just, there'll be more in 2 days, and more in my other channel and stuff I can't cover. I mean, it's just, the deluge of information that's apocalyptic in nature. Apocalyptic. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important from the apocalypse. And the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.